Hey, everybody, welcome to Shally's Alley. You are live in the alley here today, Friday, July 19th, roughly sometime in the mid to early afternoon in the United States. And of course, in Europe right now, it's probably early evening, right?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. That's not early evening, that's definitely evening, full on evening. Well, as you can surmise already by that introduction, our guest today is from across the water, not in the United States, and from the great country of Germany. And Sandra, you live in Bavaria, right?
Right, yeah.
Home of pretzels and beers,
And Oktoberfest.
and of course pretzels, beer, October. That's yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's actually what people don't realize. It's not just a tourist thing, It's actually a business thing for a lot of companies. So if you want to do
Mm.
business, go to Oktoberfest. It's actually great networking, and an invitation is like the thing to do, when you want to have good customers.
How long is it?
Oh God, I think it's 2 weeks. Yeah, it's 2 weeks
2 weeks.
actually. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's a long business date.
It definitely
Yeah.
is.
And then of course, it's more than just beer. It's food, and it's a festival. And so
Yeah,
it's lots of festivities.
exactly.
All right. Would you actually make any hires and placements and all that while you're there?
Mm, that's actually, I heard about that a lot. Like there are so many hires being made at Oktoberfest. Really, like no joke. It's really no joke. Actually, now you got me thinking.
What's the interview process? How many beers can you hold in one hand?
Yeah, it's like, how strong are
6.
you?
No, you're too
Oh,
junior. 8. Okay, yeah, mid management.
exactly. Can you still
12. Oh,
imagine
you're the CEO.
years? Oh gosh.
That's
Oh
right.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, for those of you who don't know, Sandra here is a renowned talent sourcer and speaker. Has been in. Well, I think we actually met at Socio, if I'm not mistaken. If or it was one of those events, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm not really sure because I think we might have missed each other at Soci because we skipped a few of those in between
Okay,
Corona
in
and
between
I
here and
just
there,
learned
right?
last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so Sandra's been working in the industry, in executive search and HR and sourcing. And her claim to fame is the outreach part of the process, and conducting candidates in initial conversation, which, if I understand correctly, from my at least from my experience in Germany and in some other parts of Europe, is quite different due to some laws, privacy laws, not only, but also laws about being able to contact or not contact people, and so on. So, can you start by maybe telling us a little bit about how you compare the German and European outreach process with essentially the rest of the world? What is different about it?
Mm. Actually, I got asked that a lot, and this is actually how my last position came about, because I frequently got asked like, what's so different about the German market? Why
I know it's very different, but most people don't. Yeah.
Yeah, they always said like, why is my outreach not working? So I had a look at this and I was like, okay, you need to stop doing this, and the subject lines with like the dollar sign tongue emoji. Just can't do this in Germany. It's like, stop it. And just keep it rather shorter than what you do here, and just be mindful about the emojis too and the wording. Oh
Hmm.
God, So they said like, all right, well, why don't you just roll out your whole knowledge to the whole company and become a TA campaign manager? And I'm like, well, yeah, it does make sense, because back then we also had quite a few RPOs who didn't, have our tonality and our voice in outreach. So I kind of trained them doing this, and especially the German market was super tricky because it's definitely a cultural thing, not necessarily so much the legal stuff. I mean, of course, there it's compared to the US, but definitely the source of where you're having this information from matters more, um
Oh, okay. The
and
source. Okay.
yes, yes, definitely the source. So where did you script
So
this
if I
from?
tell them that I found them on the internet, that's not, I can't say that, or
It's this gray area
a gray area.
always.
Okay.
Yeah, even contacting those people is always a gray area. Um, but what matters more is like the cultural thing, because
Okay.
obviously the laws kind of reflect the cultural part as well, because people question much more, where do you got my email from, my number from, super, super skeptical. Um,
Why
and
are they skeptical? Is it because they don't want career opportunities?
I think that's really just a German thing, because Germans are afraid of digitization, of the
Hmm.
internet, of being scammed, really, So
Okay.
the
Okay.
number one question they ask themselves always is like, is this a scam? If I press this button, will I delete the internet? So that's a
I've done
that's
that. That
really,
that happened. Yeah.
yeah. So
I did that once, and
you
I
did,
that was it.
okay.
Yeah, they wiped it, and it was very early on. It was like 1996 or something, and there was a bit of a delay, and then they rebooted it, and yeah, they put new batteries on
Oh
it.
my God, you sound like the IT crowd. Do you know this? Like, the elders of
Oh,
the internet.
that's
I
right.
love
So
it though.
so really, it's a matter of suspicion,
Mm,
comfort level, but not quite as much legality. Now,
yeah, yeah.
is this true, or just simply a bad rumor that there was for some time a law against calling an employee at work to recruit them? That
Yes.
law did exist, in fact.
It did exist, but again, it was under some restriction as well. So you were not allowed to talk to the candidate more than 5 minutes at work to
Okay.
distract them from work. And you had to keep it really, really short and postpone it to the evening. So when I started in recruiting, it was still in place. And oh man, I had so many calls in the evening. So headhunting was really a tough job,
A
because all you
nighttime
did was,
job.
yeah, it definitely was. It
So what
definitely.
if they work in the evening? Then what are you supposed to do?
Sorry, say that
What
again.
if the job is they work the second shift or they work in the evening? Then what do
Oh
you
God.
you have to call them at midnight or what? I mean,
I have no clue. I have no
so
clue.
this was a matter of protecting the company from distracting employees. That was the original.
Honestly. Yeah,
Okay,
I honestly don't know what the what the reasons
what the
behind the law
reason was.
was, but
Okay,
I think it was a little bit to protect the companies. And
okay.
back then headhunting was pretty new still, at least in Germany. I think in the US it was totally different. You just cold call people and be like, hey,
We
I
really
got.
never had anything similar to that in the US. And
Oh,
in
okay.
fact, there's not a lot of countries where in all my international, travel and experience, there's not a lot of companies that abided by something as strict as that in other countries. There are some very bizarre differences in Japan compared to, let's say, other parts of Asia that have to do with the concept of saving face and
Yeah,
the level of person who reaches out as a recruiter. The recruiter should have, first of all, be representing a third party, not directly the employer, because
yeah,
otherwise it's
yeah.
considered confrontational. And also, they should have a higher level than the candidate. So if the recruiter is a junior and the candidate is a senior, that's considered, inappropriate. So there's some things like that, but you could still contact them at work. This
Yeah.
whole don't contact at work thing really came up in Germany for me mostly. But do you see this in any other country that you know of?
Well, that actually was Germany as well when I
No,
started.
any other country or no?
Any other country? Let me think. No, no other country is as strict and formal, but I think also just in terms of formality and like hierarchy and stuff,
Mhm.
Germany is pretty similar in that sense to Japanese. Also, the way of punctuality, preciseness, and that sort of stuff. So if you sent over information to a German candidate, they would do their research, right? Whereas maybe a US candidate would rather be like, okay,
Wait, yeah,
just go on a call, just
right.
see what they have to offer. A German candidate would download your financial report. Like your annual report, and really, have
Right,
a
and
look.
then as a recruiter, they ask you questions, and if you don't know, then they're like, "That's not
Yeah,
good."
exactly. They are really instigating you,
Yeah.
and they really read those reports. Like, no joke. I had so many candidates who were like, "Yes, I read their financial report. They seem to be stable, and then they did this, and I
So
was like, oh
stability also then is important. So
yeah."
tell me, how do you work with startups that have no annual reports?
Mm. Well, right now Germany has a good startup scene, but it wasn't the case necessarily a few years ago. That just
Mhm.
started a few years ago, honestly.
So people are more
Um,
willing to take a risk now.
exactly, and it was also the question about formality in language, because we don't have the general you, we
Mhm.
have the do and the C. So the formal address, like Mr., and not just the you, hey you. And that changed a lot over the last couple of years. Also, I have the impression like Germany has become more international, anyways, more startup-ish, but
Okay.
that's only pretty recently, in the last 5 to 10 years, honestly.
So what can we learn in the rest of the world about the communication that would benefit us in the sense that if you're um, I'm just going to expand the concept of skepticism and suspicion, which is a healthy thing. It's
Yeah.
here in the US, you may not be aware, but we have a very big problem that has been continuing to grow out of control with job fraud, actual job fraud,
Yeah, I
which
heard about
is
that. Yeah.
actually what they would be worried. So imagine, right? So
Yeah.
given that that's a growing concern, it's not too far to imagine that perhaps we could benefit from um, the skepticism and use some of that in our own communication. So what are some of the key points? Beside, you said make it shorter, which I that can work in some cases, also not in others.
Mm.
I can give you examples where candidates have asked me for more information because it wasn't enough. And as a result, I would put that in the beginning of the outreach sequences to increase response rate. Likewise, I can tell you the opposite is true. So I work with a lot of different types of science communities, and in science, they appreciate the information up front.
Yeah.
So a lengthier email is okay.
Yeah.
But that aside, the nuances between jobs. What are some of the key, other than brevity? What are some of the key aspects of a communication sequence in outreach in Germany that we could benefit from learning?
Mhm. I think first of all, of course, show that you're a trustworthy person. How do you do
How?
this? I
Yeah.
mean, of course, have a professional LinkedIn account,
Okay.
and I still see a lot of recruiters. There's no information. You don't really see if this is a scam or something. They never post anything.
Okay.
They have no banner up or no profile picture. They not engage anyhow. They're not networking basically. So how can you be a professional great recruiter if you don't do those things, right? And of course, there's so much more how you can display it visually, that you're connected to the company, that you actually engage with the content of your company, right? And take part of those initiatives, right?
Hmm.
Um, but also the messaging itself can be great, but can also be super bad, super generic, but if you do your homework, that should be great. And a lot of recruiters unfortunately don't do their homework. They just have the job ad and that's everything they have. They never dig deeper and engage with the team and ask for some background information. So whenever a candidate comes back with deeper questions, they don't know anything at all except for like the standard stuff. But what's missing there also is the chance to do storytelling, because you just don't want to repeat what's in your job ad. You just really want to
So
tell a
in the
story.
email, do the storytelling.
Yes, both.
Ah,
I mean,
okay.
of course, you start your story in the message and then you continue in the interview, right? Because your message is just one touch point. During your candidate journey, you have multiple touch points. And of
Hmm.
course, your LinkedIn profile is just one of them, but also your message is a big one of them. And in your message, you can display a lot of information, but a lot of people miss out on this chance, because they don't use any email campaigning tools. They just put in basically the information from the job ad and nothing more. Plus, they do a very generic outreach where a lot of people get the impression, did they even read my profile? Is this like a mass email? And as soon as you are going beyond templates, even, where you exchange like, hey, first name, I saw that you work at company, then that also installs trust, right? When you make it appear as if your message was solely written for just this person, right? How could this be scam? So those are just a few thoughts here.
Okay. Okay. So personalization, trust, having a profile that you link from your email. Um, so I understand the recruiter having a profile on LinkedIn, but in Germany and in many countries, LinkedIn is not very popular. So, for example, if you look at the working population, according to the Federal Reserve Bank and a couple of other sources, the size of the working population in Germany is about 54 million.
Mm,
In other words, people that are between the 16 and 64. Right, some people may work before and some people may work after, but for the purposes of calculating economic working age, 16 to 64, there's 54 million Germans that
yeah.
that have working age. But there's only, if you do a search on LinkedIn, there's only 16 million. So that means that a very large majority of people in Germany are not on LinkedIn.
Mm,
So if I guess, and this is, by the way, not just Germany, it happens in many other
sure.
countries. Even in the United States, everybody's not on LinkedIn. I think the numbers here are 230 million and 203 million. So about 30 million people are not on LinkedIn, assuming that the ones that are on LinkedIn are not duplicates, which, there's many duplicates, there's many fake profiles, there's many, right? So that brings me to the question of, in countries where there's lack of trust in internet sources of data, um, you have LinkedIn is basically an artificial world. I can create a LinkedIn profile and make up any name I want and any job history I want. So why do they trust LinkedIn if
Mm,
so few of them are on LinkedIn? It's, and that, by the way, it's not just Germany, it's many
yeah,
other countries
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So how do you work around that?
Good question. I mean, one thing I always look at is how many connection does a recruiter have, what activities do they have? Because a fake
Okay.
profile doesn't engage in, faking that too much,
That's
maybe
yeah,
they
you can
have
have a fake profile, but not a lot of
yeah, maybe 40 to 100
yeah,
connections.
and not a lot of likes on your skills, and yeah, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's one point of verification, right? And of course you can never know. But what I can say from like the outreaches that I got or my friends got, the outreaches that were scam were just so bad that they were like
Obvious.
obviously
Okay.
scam, and the ones who weren't were extremely extremely good, where it goes to a level where you just can't know. We had one case in the past, I'd
That's
say,
real fraud.
that was real fraud,
Yeah.
and where the person contacted us and asked us, is this person working with you? And we were like, no. you know
It was very well designed. I mean, it was a
yes,
real
yes,
crime, not just somebody sending spam.
yes,
So
exactly. So
in
there's
your
crime and then
outreach,
there's spam, I would say,
right. So in your outreach with your messaging, and also texting, is that is that part of the sequence, or is it really is email really the only acceptable outreach method?
Of course there's more to link or more than LinkedIn, and that's also email.
Email,
And
yeah.
personally, I think you should always mix and match.
So
So
texting is okay.
yes, don't just use one method.
Mhm.
But texting like WhatsApp or something, I wouldn't do that in Germany, honestly,
No,
because
okay.
no, because that people will definitely delete, and
Hmm.
kind of that feel like that's an invasion into their privacy.
So email and LinkedIn, but what about call?
Call is okay.
Is
Yeah, it's
okay. All
pretty
right.
good. That's also pretty old, so that's been long done. But even there, when I called and I had more of blue worker at the phone, I would first of all had to explain what headhunting really is,
Right.
and the first 10
Why
minutes I
you're
was
even calling.
reducing that scam feeling again. Also we have a mini LinkedIn, I call it, called Xing,
Mhm.
which is now again a little bit on the rise. It's been in when it started, it was quite comparable to LinkedIn, and then it was suddenly dead when
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Mhm.
grew immensely. And
But
now,
it's coming
now
back.
they're throwing a lot of initiatives, and you can see them on any HR event, and they do a lot of stuff. But and
What
there are
about
so
vContact? Is that strictly I know vContact is big in Russia. Is it in Germany at
no, no,
all?
no,
Not
that's a
yet,
Russian
no?
thing. Yeah, yeah,
A Russian
yeah.
thing.
So Russia
Okay.
has also its,
Its own LinkedIn. Yeah.
platform in that sense. Yeah, so well, it's a bit unfortunate, but other platforms are not as popular
Mhm.
as LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is I guess the most trusted one, and even now
Which is
when
not saying very much because it's 16% out of 64 million.
yeah, I know.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
that's
what
not very many.
yeah, I mean, what we would do when I was headhunting is engage a company, but it was very, very long ago. It was, I think, 15 years ago or something. And we would employ an agency who would use stories, cold call stories to find out a
Okay.
number, which you wouldn't necessarily find anywhere online, right? And then they gave us all those numbers, and I just called through and, also
Right.
said something like, I got your number because somebody recommended it to me, stuff like this.
Yeah, that's really frowned upon in nowadays. It's called pretexting,
Mhm.
and it's lost a lot of favor. In fact, in the United States, there was a law that was passed against pretexting because it was being abused by law enforcement officers. So during investigation,
Oh,
for
okay. Yeah, I
example,
do see what you mean. Yeah, like
yeah,
you get surfed sort of stuff.
yeah, they would say, "Oh, look, we found your DNA on the crime scene," and of course that was not true.
Oh
So the
my
can the you know the interviewer, the person that was being interviewed, would admit to the crime because they thought they had evidence, and of course, hey, they admitted to the crime, so they are criminals. But still, the law enforcement shouldn't
God.
have to resort to lying to catch criminals, and so that became a law that you can't do that,
Oh my
which
God.
is also
Oh my
is
God.
not
What
seen
is
very well.
that?
So, if you're going to do email and LinkedIn, what is there a frequency or a number? Like, how many or how far apart? Is there some
Mm,
acceptable standard, or that, or maybe not acceptable, but what works
yeah.
best?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we tried a lot of stuff, and also it not only what we found out, it not only depended on what the candidate feels comfortable with, but also what the recruiter feels comfortable with. Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes company neglect that thought, because they just look at the candidate side. And I know, I mean, of course, we want to convince the candidate,
Yeah, it's
but
your job if you're the recruiter.
I know, of course not. No, but it still has to feel like you and authentic.
Authentic,
And
yeah.
like we had a lot of times when people felt super cringe, at a certain amount of messages, and I think we need to respect that in a sense,
Do
and
you
be like,
feel like there's a so 3,
yeah,
6,
it
7?
was 5. It was 5.
5 seems to more than 5 makes people cringe.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
On
exactly.
both sides, the recipient
Mhm,
and the
mhm.
sender.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think, the candidates probably would have accepted more, but especially at 5, especially the
Starts to
recruiters were
become,
like, "Oh,
yeah.
yeah, the sources, yeah." In that
What
sense,
about the
yeah.
space in between? So once every day, 2 days, a week, how far apart?
Yeah, so we had the thing where we first would send out an email, and then also, use LinkedIn as a
Mhm.
second channel, within mail. And that was 3 days apart, you
Okay,
know?
and that's comfortable.
Yeah, so because we
Okay.
were like, "Okay, maybe someone's not opening the email, whatever," and
Yeah, yeah,
or,
yeah. They don't
just
get it,
or
um,
they
or it goes
just
to spam and they don't see it.
exactly.
Yeah,
And what we could see that people said, "Oh, I got your email," and it reminded me again to have a look at it. And
right.
on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, then they have another proof that this is
They
real,
can see
this
you.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can see you a little bit better then too. And but the most responses we got, from the follow up.
Mhm.
So the third message was then an email again, the follow up email, and the fourth message was, again, an in-mail follow up. And the initial, outreaches, the first two messages were pretty similar, just giving a lot of information, a little bit of extra information. And the follow up would be more fun, so in the
I do
email,
that. I
yeah,
do the
so
same thing. Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
add a little bit of extra information, but more like what's our benefits and what's the team outing look like. So in the email follow up, we can of course include more, visual content, and that's what we did.
Images?
Images, yeah,
Ah, okay.
like GIFs, images, video
Ah.
thumbnails. That's what we, included in there. Just really the fun content, really content in sense of content marketing, and really, um, and then, use the in-mail as a follow-up. Then again,
Mhm.
and that was a kind of a fun thing that I also saw years and years ago, not 2019 at SOSU, and it was the emergency call outreach, where it's kind of a gamification because
Mm.
everyone loves quizzes, right? So it was kind of a quiz which said like, "Hey, I haven't heard back from you, and I wonder if you've fallen down the stairs. And in that case, I can call the ambulance for you. But maybe you also and then we would choose stuff that's seasonal. So let's say it's Christmas. So
Right.
you got stuck in the snowstorm. B,
Right.
you were bad, and bad Santa hit you or something.
Right. Right. Right.
Like really, really kind of.
See, you're on a family vacation. You're not responding to email.
Oh yes, but you wish you were at this job right now. Like
Right.
really, really fun stuff, which makes you really laugh, And people would respond massively about this and be like, "Oh my god, that's so fun!" And they like
Humor.
it's,
Hmm.
or they would invent their own stuff and be like, "It's D, I just got a baby."
I'm
So
trapped under an
that's
alligator. Please send help.
no, the fun answers we got, it was just really, really cool. And also the responses were just amazing. And people
Humor
just
is
loved.
always, yeah, I find humor appropriate humor.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
situational humor, self deprecating humor, and
Yeah.
situational humor always,
Yeah.
has a high response rate, except for I got one time, funny story. This campaign that I have I've now sent out over the period of 4 or 5 months about 9,000 messages for this
Wow.
one particular campaign. Very
Wow.
successful.
Okay.
It's just we have several openings, and so it's more than just one position, but it's the same type of role. And out of these 9,000, I only got one time when humor was responded to very impolitely,
Yeah.
very nasty, like mean. And it was a person whose their response was rather unhinged, like psychologically ill, because the message was humorous, not
Yeah.
offending in any way.
No, no, no.
It
Yeah.
was something to the effect of like, it's let me tell you, this job is like your spirit animal or something like that.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
playing
Wow.
around with. And they replied back with like, "How dare you compare my job with a spirit animal? That is nonsense." And by like a whole I mean, my message was like a paragraph, and they sent back paragraph and paragraph after.
Oh, wow.
And I was
Okay. I
like,
know the sort
"I'm
of
so
people. Yeah.
sorry. I didn't really mean to upset you that much, but wow."
You spend a lot of time like
One out of
answering.
9,000. So, generally speaking, humor does a really, really good job. What about the subject line?
Yeah, and just let me finish with the fifth message, because the fifth message was the
Oh,
closer.
yes.
And the closer is for your talent pool, So obviously, if they don't respond to like 4 messages, like 2 follow-ups, even, they don't want to like talk to you at the moment, which is fine, But and they might still be like, oh yeah, I forgot to answer, but it's fine, And the closer is really like, I send you a connection request with this. So if even if it's not for now, just let's stay in contact. And so they are then in your talent pool, sort of, because whenever you now post a job on LinkedIn, they will see it probably, and that will also enhance your credibility then again, So not everybody, of course, will accept this invitation if they haven't responded to your emails before, but they might, and then they're in your talent pool, sort of.
Okay.
And those are the benefits of obviously then of growing that,
That makes sense. Okay.
yeah.
So, it would be building, right? Building your. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So and in terms of humor, also what I wanted to say is that I got a lot of objections from yeah, people and saying, what about the Germans? We heard they don't have any humor. Should be
Okay, that's not
a
right.
humorous note. And actually, what we found is that they do have humor. And we weren't sure, okay, it's a little bit more informal,
Hmm.
but because obviously, in a joke, you can't be like too formal. But obviously also you don't want to hurt anyone. And people just loved it, you know. So they do have some humor, but they also want to sense this is a genuine outreach, right? Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, the self-deprecating. I've been honest and vulnerable. Like I use my own history and my own situations, so that it's not about
Yeah.
them. It's not personal, and it's an effort to make a connection.
Yeah.
To be authentic, like you said, it's the authenticity of it. So tell me about the subject lines. You said they're very different. We have a lot of stories here in the United States about people using emojis and subject lines. I have always been very much against it, and in fact have tested it multiple times with email, and it does not have a positive impact.
No.
Um, it does in LinkedIn messages.
Mm,
So emoji in LinkedIn seems to have an effect,
mm.
but in email, not at all. But so it's interesting you say that in Europe and in Germany, that's also the case. What about other pieces of the subject line? What can we learn from
Mm.
the skepticism point of view and the
Oh yeah, I actually do have a great example for this because a UK colleague came to me and she was hiring for a key account manager, really high position, like really really well paid and stuff. And that's exactly what she put into her subject line. It was like great salary, and then the emoji with the dollar tongue, and also uh multi-million sales opportunity, and it wasn't clear if that's just, what opportunity is this, is this even a job, it
that sounds
wasn't
like a scam.
exactly. It sounded that triggered German so much. She got zero response and was like, don't do this. Yeah, I think generally speaking, what Germans don't like if you sound like Wolf of Wall Street. Like,
Oh, okay.
um
Aggressive.
yeah, this aggressive, like you can hustle here, you can make a deal like quickly. That sounds too good to be true, and Germans just don't believe it.
Hmm.
But rather, if you put in something like it's super hard, you will probably find, they will
Oh,
probably
okay.
more and be like,
Okay.
that sounds about realistic.
So what's the word for that? Radical transparency.
Yeah, radical candor. What?
Yeah,
That's an Amazon
it's
thing, no?
radical truth. Okay, this is a really hard job. You probably can't do it. Oh, I want.
Yes, that would be so German.
What about the length? Is there, 4 or 5 words, 12 words?
Mhm. Well, I think the most important thing is that it should be mobile friendly. So always make
Okay,
sure, well, it fits into like the mobile
so
preview.
1 word.
Exactly.
I
Higher.
see. Well, because in German the words are compounded, right? So
Yeah, they're more lengthy,
they're
right?
lengthy.
Yes.
Yeah, like the
Italian stuff like this.
what's the word for toothbrush?
Zahnbürste.
And that's a lot longer than toothbrush.
Yeah. God, we have very complicated
Yeah, and
wordings.
oh, my friend once told me toothbrush holder.
Zahnbürstenhalter.
There you go.
Zahnbürstenhalter.
It's all one word. That's not 3 words. That's toothbrush holder is toothbrush holder. You know?
Yeah. Oh, good
So
Lord.
you can't
Yeah.
do breaks and carriage returns and subject lines. So does it matter if you have the email address, like for example, the sender? Does it matter if that is from the company? Do they look at your
Oh,
domain, for example? Like, it doesn't match
yeah.
up. And I'm asking because two things happened when I was uh, mid career. Two things happened with my campaigns that I was working on in Germany. One of them was that the domain of the email address did not match up with the name of the company, which is actually the it was the correct domain. For example,
Mm.
Motorola. Motorola.com, the email address was mot.com.
Oh, okay.
And I got some
Maybe
weird responses.
so maybe it's because so big, they just don't want to have any random email coming in, but that's
So the
rather
domain, if you go to the website, would be Motorola.com, but the email address, my email address was
yeah,
mot.com. So candidates would reply back, is this, are you really from Motorola?
yeah.
And in the US that doesn't happen. They don't reply back, is this really from Motorola?
Hmm.
So that was weird.
Yeah.
And does that have any, or was that just a one-time
I
thing for
have
me?
never heard of this honestly
Okay.
before.
Okay.
So no, but the thing is that they still prefer the private email address over you
Gmail,
mailing them.
Hotmail, and okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
And the other thing that happened, so the job required that they spoke English, even
Mhm.
though it was in Germany. So it was a multinational company that required that the people, part of the job requirements was that they were fluent in English as well as German. And I sent out my messages with the subject line in English, no responses.
Mhm.
Switched the subject line to German, the same message, okay, the body in English,
Yes.
but the
Yes.
subject
Yes.
line in German, instantly lots of responses.
Yes, I can 100% confirm that. So you might think like this is logical, right? You also the whole message you just send in English because obviously they need to do
That
it.
didn't have a problem. Yeah, they read it in English and responded in English.
Yeah, but
The subject line in German,
if it's in German, it sounds legit, and it would be even better if the message was in German, So because
I
it
couldn't.
just sounds more,
Ich
you
spreche
know,
ein bisschen Deutsch, not very well,
what?
not very
You're
well.
getting there. You're
And
getting
I
there.
didn't want to like fake translate, like go to Google and translate and then send it and then they would respond in German, and then I'd be like, I have no idea. So
Yeah.
but I asked somebody who was a fluent German speaker what the subject line should be, and they gave me the subject line in German, and that had a huge effect. So you would recommend that appropriately for the country, French,
Mhm.
Italian, even though the body. Okay, all right.
That's actually a good point because we were reaching out globally so much.
Mhm.
And what I did then, write handouts for the recruiters or talent sourcers to give them a guideline, what to do, what not to do. And I would contact then the team in the country and be like, if you received a message, what would you want to see? What's for you a scam and
Oh,
what's beneficial for you? So we always wrote like a guideline specifically for each country, because we had split up the sources more across departments than for countries, right? Or sometimes it mixed a little bit, right? So yeah, you would also recruit for cultures that you were not so familiar with, and we had this also with Japanese candidates, and we weren't like familiar with like the dressing, what would you say, and also have us translate a subject line, with the signs, what would work and what they were actually liked in past messages. And that helped us pretty well, honestly. Also, we adjusted the landing page inside. So we would not lead them to the global page, but to
directly.
um, yeah, directly to the page which was in Japanese then. And also adjust the benefits inside more to Japanese likings, or preferences, or just
That's
reorder.
appropriate. Yeah, culturally appropriate for sure.
Yeah. So there were a lot of things to consider, honestly. Yeah.
Well, that's we have a question from one of the participants that's very interesting. And she says, asks, what if you are new to the community and don't have many connections already? How would you? So, what would you recommend?
Yeah. So I know that's it's like Yeah, it's always hard in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie, of course, but it won't stay long hard because honestly, you have a limit of connection requests of 30 people, I think, in a week.
Mhm.
Just use that and use it every week, and send it out to people you think are interesting, who you have something in common with, interact with them, and then also engage in discussions, comment on people, like people's stuff, just be very active and start to post things, and then other people will also send you connection requests, right? um, and then also you can connect with the candidates you're interviewing already, right? So you can grow your network pretty fast without a lot of effort. And I think that's the first thing you can do. And I don't mean you need to have like a huge network, but a very active network. Because a lot of people think you need to have like 1,000 or more connection requests, but that's not even the case. And in order to use the creator mode on LinkedIn, you only need to have like 150 connections, which is like nothing really. And there you can already start your own LinkedIn lives or, other formats. And the most important thing really, really is just be more active, and use this as a community, right? Not it's not just about like an Instagram followers, because it's about connecting with people on a true level, right?
Okay.
And that will also build your career and network naturally.
So you're saying basically start slow. I think that limit may increase, or if you have outstanding, you can remove them. But yeah, so you're saying kind of build up from it. Okay. And then we had another. Would you make any modifications on the number of touch points in between holidays or season, summer perhaps? So
Mm,
you were doing five, and we only talked about 3 days between the first and the second. But let's
yeah.
say it's another 3 days, another 3 days. Would you, if
Mhm.
it's a holiday, maybe skip the week and come back, or do you just keep
Mm.
going? What advice do you have for that?
Yeah, that's always the tough thing to do, right? So what you always need to think about is that the hot take of your outreach is 2 to 3 weeks. It's not even a
Ah,
long
okay.
period,
Okay.
right? Or that's at least what we had.
Mhm.
So if your hiring manager wants the candidates at a certain time, you need to use the 3 weeks before that.
Lag. Yeah. Right.
Now you have to discuss with them, look, in those 3 weeks, we will have a major holiday or we will have this or that. Does it still make sense? Or your hiring manager will be on holidays at the end of 3 weeks. So
Right.
you're like, now we need to postpone
Now we
this.
need
How
to. Yeah.
about we use exactly that time when you are on holidays that we start even the campaign and then you come back and then we do the whole thing. So
That's
you
smart.
need to do
Okay.
this strategically. But if it's just one day in between, there's no worry about it, because if you use, for example, professional email campaigning tools, like Sourcewell or Gem, they actually take that into considerations already. Of
Ah,
course, if there is a bridge day in between, you can just really leave that out and think about it. So
yeah.
always think, okay, so what does make sense? So of course, do alter it if it does make sense.
If it's a
But
significant enough break.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not like
Like
this
a
rule
major.
always work.
Mhm.
So it's always a trial, error and trial sort of thing.
Right.
There is no magic sauce for that fits every role, every
That
country,
is true. Yeah.
every
That is
company,
true.
every position. So it's always what works best, document it for the future and use it again and refine it.
I'm always A/B testing.
Hmm.
So it's a continuous evolution, and frequently my A is the original and my B is the new experiment. So it's not like A is a brand new version and B is also a brand new version, and I'm trying to figure out which one, I'm usually evolving the A into the B, and then if
Yeah.
the B doesn't respond better, I stay with the A, and then I change and try a
Yeah.
different one. But there are some fairly broad guidelines, right? Like to review, for example, 5 to 7 messages or touch points is good. If you're not comfortable with 7, that's fine. But I think really you need to plan for 5, even if what often happens is you're sending the second or third message and you're getting response. You don't need to send the fifth one. But if you didn't plan for it, it's a lot harder to fit it in retro. So
Yeah.
5 to 7 is a good plan, even if you don't get to all of them. 8 to 12 words in the subject line, maximum 12. 8 is a good target. 3 to 4 words in the subject line sometimes works, but it's sometimes not enough information, so it increases
Mm.
skepticism, right? And a couple of the 2 to 3 days in between message. So these are general guidelines. Now, if you're looking at science, it might be more like a week between messages because things are the pace is different. If you're looking at IT, especially like
Yeah.
frontline technology, help desk, and you might want to
Yeah.
shorten it. So the timing can change, but there's some major guidelines that I think are best practices that work. So I would definitely count on those holidays if they were big enough to participate in the break or pausing of the timing. But you're right. There are many applications that are campaign management software that have built-in detection. I was going to ask you as you were talking about that. It came to mind. I ran some experiments for a while in regard to the days of the week,
Oh,
and
okay.
I found typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday um, were generally slightly higher response rates, but not significant enough to where I would never send a message on Monday and
Mm.
Friday. There was just like a 10%, 12% increase. Interestingly enough, Sundays, I had the highest response rates.
Yeah. Yeah.
You found that too?
Well, we never tried that, unfortunately.
Okay.
I once did a post on LinkedIn about the Sunday message,
Mhm.
actually, and had a little, yeah, questionnaire about it if people would really use it. And on the one hand, people could say, "Oh my God, this is a horrible company. They make you work on Sundays," you know. But if you do it well enough, that might actually also be maybe a cool thing to do. Just saying like, I know you are super busy. You probably won't read it on Mondays because you will be extremely busy. The rest of the week will be ugh, you know. And Fridays you just want to go off work, and Saturday you make your groceries, and Sunday you can sit back, relax, and scroll through the internet. And this is why I'm just taking the time, because this is so important to me. And this is why I want to make sure this pops up in your inbox, right? It can work, if you phrase it a bit like this. If you just send out randomly a
Any
message,
other, right? Yeah.
yeah, it might come across as, oh my God, hustle, hustle, hustle. This is a
Yeah,
slavery.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, it's any other work day for me. No, no, the message that was sent was, pardon for interrupting your weekend, but
Yeah.
I'm sending this because I didn't want to interrupt your work day.
Yeah.
That's one. Or another one was, I wanted to catch you before you got, really busy during the week.
Hmm.
And it even said, don't
Yeah.
don't feel like you have to respond today. I know it's your day
Yeah,
off,
I
things like
love
that.
those messages, like the signatures, like this
Mhm.
time I'm sending this might work for me,
But not for
but
you. Yeah.
not for any other person. Don't feel like you have to
Mhm.
respond straight away.
Yeah.
And I know this might seem as a weird time of the day, but it actually works for me. And it might even seem more inclusive, because that's what a lot of working moms just do, send it, after
After hours.
they
Yeah.
yeah, after hours, when they put their babies to bed, they've played with them, and they still have to, keep up with work a little bit more. Um, yeah. So that might work as well. But we all know that you can schedule your messages anyhow, even with Google
Yeah.
stuff with your
Delay
Google.
send. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the license. So
yeah.
that should be obvious, but
Yeah, but Saturday, nope. The
no,
worst decline was
yeah.
Saturday. I had 23% fewer responses categorically on
Yeah, no,
Saturday than any
Saturday,
other
I
day.
wouldn't do this. Yeah,
It
totally
was
agree.
definitely
Yeah.
not. So higher on Sunday, very much lower on Saturday.
Mm,
And then Monday and Friday, not the best days, but certainly not, especially if it's during the middle of the sequence. So your first email maybe goes out on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But if it's your second or third and it
yeah.
happens to land on a Friday, it doesn't impact it
No, 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 no.
all
You
that
really
much.
have to think this through. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
What
No.
about the time of the day? Have you noticed any patterns in timing with the sending?
God, it really depends, honestly, so much. There's no perfect time. It also depends on what position this is,
Ah,
Does this
right,
person
right.
work at a desk, Do they have a
Mhm.
regular day? And just ask yourself, when would you, like to see such a message and then answer instantly? Would that be, in the mornings or after hours or at lunchtime, when you got some spare minutes? Just ask yourself and put yourself in the person's shoes, and then again,
Especially considering their time zone,
yeah,
because there might be a difference in time zone that you're not aware of, and it makes it a less convenient time for them. So, sure, what would you like to, when would you like to receive the message
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
your time translated
Mhm.
to theirs?
But like those modern email campaigning tools, they do have heat maps and they really show you what
Okay.
works when, and they send it out intelligently, which helps you definitely, So this is why I'm actually, honestly, a very big fan of those email campaigning tools, because they just do help you and, perfect, perfectitize. Is that a word?
Perfect. Yeah. Help you.
Perfect your
Yeah. Your
outreach,
timing and yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a bit to think about. Thank you so much for joining us today. I always ask my guests two questions before we end the show. The first one of those is, who should be our next guest?
Oh my God, I've sort of thought about this because I feel like everyone has been on the show who has to be on the show. Like you have the
There's
who and
so many good
who, I'm
people that
so
I
on
don't
it
know.
anyways. I'm just like really starstruck a little bit. Just gonna lick the screen, be like, oh God, Shelly. God, creepy.
Well,
Okay,
thank
too
you.
much for me.
I
Anyway,
really there's so many people I don't know that I've made some very good
um
discoveries in
So,
asking that
so
question.
I would honestly just recommend someone who is a little bit more introvert, but who's amazing. And it's Ben Karki. He's from Finland. And he has worked with me at Scanded, and he's now with IO. It's a Berlin startup, and he's the talent sorcerer there. He is just plain amazing. He's just such a brain. So when I hired him, he was a little bit of a newbie in that sphere, and I asked him, "Would you mind reading Jan Teitz's book? The big one, the really big one, the 800 pages
Hmm,
book."
yeah.
Before the next interview, and he was like, sure, and he did actually. I could really tell he did. It was just plain crazy. He's a big brain, and then we wrote a book together because we had so many stuff we would try out and create a cheat sheet out of it. And eventually, when I was on maternity leave and I was a little bit bored, I was like, why don't we just write a book together, about it? And we did, and it was such a fun times, honestly. And there's a lot of things in there, what we tried and how those messages actually looked like, because we really wanted to show people not only how to create great messages, but what really worked for us, with examples, with very, very concrete examples. And that's what we published then on Amazon. He's an amazing guy. He's so lovely. He's one of the most lovely people I know, and smartest, one of the smartest sorcerers. And he always tries new ways. And he's such a tool nerd, you know.
Okay, I like that already.
Yeah, he's
Cool.
lovely.
All right. Well, I'm gonna reach out. Might need a little boost of an introduction from you, but that's a
Sure.
really good recommendation. Thank you. And then the last question is, I would like to have you leave our audience with something to think about deeply, like a thought-provoking question, not an idea that you want to put into their head, but something that they should contemplate for themselves. Self-discovery, basically. Nope. Looks like we froze. All right, folks. Looks like we have a frozen connection here, so I guess we're we're gonna have to get that deep thought um, some other time. Sorry about that. Apologies. And well, we'll see you back here. We have Megan Whittington coming back on July. Oh, there we go. Is she back? Nope, she's not back.
Hello.
Hey,
Oh,
welcome back.
oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know why, but my internet just cut itself off. Or I don't know. Maybe my daughter, she pulled the plug. I'm she's such a sneaky
Blame the kids. Okay, I love it.
one. Okay,
Oh,
okay, you called me. About your question though, like a deep thought, right?
yeah, something to mull over.
Well, what you should always think about is that when you're doing an outreach, you're stepping into someone else's world
Mm,
uninvited. And what you should always
true.
ask yourself is, what traces do you want to leave there? And
Mm,
because it's a lot about the recruiter, me, what I want from them. And there's a little thought about what situation they are currently in, no empathy, no real interest. So how can you spark this and really also leave maybe someone smiling, or happy with your note, and not just annoyed and be like, oh, another recruiter message, it's spam, but rather something that also adds value to someone's day or knowledge or development. And that might not necessarily just be a new job, but also be just maybe a cool article you've just read, that's super, super thought provoking for the industry or the position they're working in, right? So if I would wanted to maybe recruit you, Shally, I would maybe send you the coolest, newest interview article that I've read on AI in outreach, for example, and be like, hey, also you might want to have a look at this. I know you're a brain and want to, maybe have a thought about this. This is also what we're thinking about at the moment at our company.
great. That's really good feedback. I appreciate that. Think about how you're interrupting their day. So, what do
Yeah.
you want? Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good
Exactly.
deep thought. Deep thought. Okay. Well, thank you very much, folks. Everybody, thank you for coming. We will see you next week, as I was saying before, with Megan Whittington on July 26th, our next guest. And until then, please be kind to yourselves.